Okay, we're recording.
Thank you, Adam. Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. We're going to get started since it's 10:01. So we'd like to welcome you all to our webinar, Preparing Course Content. My name is Jasmine Parent. I'm a learning technology consultant with Teaching and Learning Services at McGill. I'm here today with a colleague who will be co-hosting this webinar with me, Megan Hirsch, who is also a part of our education technology team. We want to let you know that this session is being recorded. If you prefer not to be visible, you can turn off your video so that you don't appear in the recording. I'd also like to note that you are muted upon entry for the duration of the presentation. We ask you to hold off with your questions. We will set aside some time at the end of the webinar to address your questions. Please note that the slides for this presentation will be shared with the recording. So let's get started. We're going to start by going over the goals we have for this webinar. So our goal for today's webinar are to demonstrate how to organize and manage content within my courses, how to explore how to curate and create course materials, including videos, and identify strategies for your students to practice your content. So I'm going to give the floor to my colleague right now, Megan, who is going to talk to you about organizing your content strategically and why this is important.
So thank you, Jasmine, and thank you everybody for attending today. As Jasmine mentioned, my name is Megan, and I'll be co-hosting today's webinar. And before we jump in, I just want to acknowledge that many of you are probably already applying these strategies, and because these are relevant to in-person teaching as well as remote teaching. So we are, however, discussing and emphasizing these strategies because they are particularly important in the context of remote teaching. So let's start by examining organizing your course. So course organization benefits both instructors and students. So planning and organizing your course content is like building the bones of your house. You want to think about the outline of your course and create an overall structure that's both engaging and cohesive for you and your students. The structure of the course greatly impacts student experience. A clear course structure motivates students, improves their persistence, raises their engagement and grades. Students in effectively organized courses are able to spend their time focusing on learning because they know what they're expected to do. This planning is also key for you as an instructor. It allows you to determine what type of content you will include and in what order you would like to share it with your students. This planning saves time by avoiding curating or creating unnecessary materials. So we're going to move on to three main strategies to apply when organizing your course. And the first is to set expectation. And what I mean by this is to define and communicate what the learning outcomes and expectations are for the overall course and for each individual module. So if you take a look at the next slide, it's a screenshot from the TLS website. It's the course outline template, which is a great resource to refer to when thinking about the kind of information you want to share with your students. So think about communicating with your students at the beginning of the course, but also throughout your course, like for example, at the beginning of each module. This will help students navigate through your content with a sense of control. They know what to expect, but also what is expected of them. And the second strategy we recommend using is to use simple navigation. So imagine the total learning experience from the perspective of the online students and organize your course accordingly. Online students can become confused or frustrated if they find it challenging to simply navigate your course. When students use a lot of their cognitive resources just figuring out how to access course materials, they have few left for the content itself. So an example of course organization, which we're going to be showing you in the next slide, is actually, so just to give you an idea of how this would look in the My Courses platform, would be to organize your course chronologically, so by week, creating a module for each week. And another example would be to organize your course by topic, grouping materials addressing the same theme or topic together. And then we have a final example where you could organize your course by type of content. So grouping your content into similar types of materials such as activities, readings, discussion, etc. So choose a title for your module that will help your students understand the structure of your course. Is your course built around central questions, a series of themes, a theoretical framework? Use your navigation to communicate the structure of what you want your students to learn. And the third and final strategy is to stay consistent. So while there are many different ways to organize your course, once you choose your strategy, the best thing you can do for your students is to implement it as consistently as possible. Like in-person students who get in the habit of going to class at the same time and the same place every week, online students need to form those habits to really maintain consistent performance across the semester. So use consistent structure and naming conventions for organizing for your content, for assignments, and for activities. So for example, you can see in this next slide, this economy class has organized its modules by week, and each module is consistently named using the week of the course and then the topic addressed. You can also think about making frequently used resources easy to find. If you have instructions for a major assignment or resources that students will be using throughout the course, maybe keep those in a module at the main menu level rather than in a weekly folder where students have to dig around for them. So now that I've given you some ideas on how to think about your course organization, here are some tools that you can actually use to do this in my courses. So in my courses, content is organized into modules and submodules, which act as folders and subfolders. In these are topics, which are your actual course materials. So worded PDF documents, links to files, websites, activities, assignments, etc. So for example, if you're organizing your course by week, your first module could be named, week 1, and a submodule would be the various topics addressed during the week, for example, topic introduction, and inside your submodules would be the relevant course materials. So these will really allow you to structure your course content. Another way that My Courses allows you to organize your course is through release conditions. So by predetermining when students have access to materials. And these conditions can be set for any module, submodule, or topic. So for example, you could give students access to a certain assignment only after the relevant course lectures have been given. Or you can give a due date to readings, letting students know how they should progress through your content. If students are working on a group presentation, relevant information about their specific topic could be released only to their group. And a final example would be that you could also give access to the first module of your course only to students that have read the course syllabus. And you can mix and match these release conditions to really set a pace to your course. So we're going to be moving on to curating and creating content. But before I do this, I wanted to quickly address the topic of accessibility. You want to be thinking about accessibility at the very beginning of your course planning, because that way you don't have to go back and modify any materials that you've put into your course later. So something to consider is that My Courses is an accessible platform, and this means that it can be navigated using assistive technologies, and there are no barriers preventing access to or interaction with the platform itself. So what you as an instructor need to be mindful of is the content that you put in My Courses. So if you're creating content in Microsoft, use the accessibility checker to do a quick scan of your documents and correct any known accessibility issues. Whenever possible, provide captioning for your videos. And this can be done with the lecture recording system that automatically captions any content that's uploaded. Choose multimedia with intention and prioritize multimedia that's accessible. For example, videos with closed captioning, audio clips or podcasts with transcripts. During your course lecture, describe your visuals. Instead of saying, look at this graph, verbally describe what the graph is communicating to ensure that even if a student has difficulty seeing the element, you can still obtain the information that the graph actually conveys. And finally, always provide options for virtual participation. This ensures that if students experience any barriers with participation, they have alternatives that can still allow them to engage with the course and interact with their peers. So for example, have your students discuss a specific lecture topic in Zoom breakout rooms, but also create a discussion forums in My Courses about the same topic, allowing students that did not take part in the breakout rooms a chance to participate. And if you'd like to explore this topic further, please reach out to the Accessibility Advisor at the Office of the Provost, Rachel DeJordi. She's incredibly helpful and she'd be happy to help you make your course more accessible and adapt any of your materials to your students' needs. So I'm going to give the floor over to my colleague Jasmine, who's going to tell you a bit more about curating and creating materials.
Thank you so much, Megan. So I'm going to talk about curating and creating materials for your course. Now that we've covered ways in which you can organize your content, we're going to discuss how you can go about adding content to your modules. So you have two choices. You can either curate content, which means collect other people's work or resources that are already available, or you can create content. We're going to go over both. Whether you curate or create content, it's important to keep a few design principles in mind when thinking about a remote teaching environment. So the first principle we have is to be intentional. So being intentional can mean a few things. It's important to define your learning outcomes before you start adding content. Following this, all content that you add should align with those learning outcomes. So furthermore, each piece of content should be relevant. Ask yourself, does this really need to be here? How does this add to students' learning? How does this help them achieve the learning outcomes that I've chosen? This also means that you should be very clear with your expectations. If you create a reading list, do you want them to read everything that's on it, or are some readings required while others could be additional? It's easy, especially in an online environment, to just upload interesting but irrelevant content alongside what's intended. It might be helpful to set expectations for time as well. I've taken a few online courses where the instructor indicated exactly how much time he or she expected us to spend on certain sections. So this was very helpful with my own time management, and I knew what was more important to focus on. Being intentional also gives you the opportunity to highlight what's important. So explicitly letting them know that certain sections are more critical. Additionally, being intentional with the content, you can choose to include rich examples that support the content. So students might have an easier time understanding concepts when they're supported by examples. The second principle is to make your content personal. So building rapport with them by including content that's addressed specifically to the students is important. Don't be afraid to talk to them in a recorded video and just, be yourself. Because you're no longer in a room together, it can sometimes be difficult for them to feel connected with you or with the content in the same way that they might in a face-to-face lecture. So even little things like starting a video or lecture recording with just saying like, hi everybody, I hope you're hanging in there, can really go a long way. Doing anything you can to foster that type of rapport should be a priority given that the circumstances that we're in are so extraordinary. The third principle is keeping your content focused. So whether it be readings or videos, it's important to break your ideas down into smaller chunks so that you present one coherent idea at a time. You can choose to create and record videos. Just keep in mind, keeping them limited to about 5 to 10 minutes each is the most ideal when keeping your students' attention focused. It's a good idea to break your content up, with interactive activities, which I'm going to talk a little bit about later. That might include knowledge checks or just opportunities for discussion. So as the instructor, you can validate the resources and decide how students will interact with your content. Much in the same way that you review and select a textbook or readings or activities for students on campus, you can review and curate online resources for students to interact with in the online environment. We encourage instructors to curate whenever they can. Don't reinvent the wheel. There's a wealth of great online resources that instructors can review and curate for students. The first place that you might want to look to curate materials is within our own library. So the library has a liaison librarian for each department who are subject-specific research experts that can help you find what you're looking for. So we really encourage you to use the resources that we have here at McGill. The McGill community also has access to a variety of platforms and catalogs like Canopy or WorldCat Discover that have videos and books and different types of media that are available for you to use in your courses. So for this, you should contact your liaison librarian for more information. The next place you can look are at Open Educational Resources, or OERs. So OERs are freely available teaching and learning materials that are either in the public domain or are available under an open license. So this allows you to use, reuse, adapt, and share the materials freely. Your library liaison librarian can also help you find openly licensed teaching materials like OERs. Some examples of some well-known OER providers include Khan Academy, which are educational videos, and OpenStax textbooks, for example. In addition, there are many other free open resources that you might consider using. So YouTube and TED Talks, for example, contain a wealth of educational videos that you might be interested in sharing as well with your students. Because curating involves sharing somebody else's work, we believe that it's important to mention copyright and intellectual property. So the McGill Library does have some copyright guidelines. Many instructors don't realize that McGill has a system in place called Savia that allows you to legitimately and fairly post scanned materials to my courses. So this system allows instructors to freely copy up to 35% of a book to share within my courses. If you'd like more information on copyright at McGill, please, I recommend that you visit the link that we've provided here. McGill has a wealth of information on this topic. Additionally, if you have more specific questions related to your course in particular, you can always contact the copyright librarian at copyright@mcgill.ca. We would also like to mention that your intellectual property rights do not change because you're teaching remotely. So I've had a few instructors voice concerns about their lectures being recorded or the slide decks being shared in public spaces. Please note that this is not allowed and your content is protected in a closed environment like my courses. So you might want to consider including a statement about copyright of your course materials and posting it either as an announcement in my courses or perhaps in your course syllabus. We actually have templates available for these types of statements on our website, which we will share with you in the chat. If you're unable to curate the information you want to share with your students, you can always create it. Forms of content that you might already be familiar with creating include PowerPoint presentations or perhaps PDF readings. You might also be already familiar with creating activities for your students in my courses. So since you're going to be teaching in a remote setting, a type of content that tends to be more popular in that context is lecture recordings or videos. So because of this, I'd like to focus on best practices and strategies for creating videos within your course. Before diving in to creating video content, we suggest that you take some time to think a little bit about what you want to do before you actually do it. So first, you should determine your goals and what you want to achieve with a video. It's important to consider how your video will align with your course and learning outcomes. So what topics do you want to cover? What kind of video do you want to make? How will your video enhance the learning experience of students? You can even map out a plan for your video. So for example, let's say you wanted to produce a short video of a demo of a chemistry experiment. So just creating a structure that identifies who your audience is. You know, is it first year science students? What is their background already? What experiment will you be doing? What is the purpose of the video? So how is it going to help them achieve their goals in that course? Do you want to consider making a short lab safety video before, or maybe a bloopers video of what could go wrong in an experiment? So it's important to just give your video that type of structure before you start recording. Once you've established what you will be covering and who your video will be for, you can decide on how you will go about creating your video. So what equipment might you need? Do you need a special camera or can you use your phone? Do you need special access to a lab on campus or can you record at home? And what software technologies will you need? So I'm going to be covering a few tools that are available for you to use in the next slide. And what do you want to say exactly? You don't have to write a script word for word, though it might be helpful, but you should have an idea about what you're going to say. Though it may seem like people's video content in educational videos, for example, on YouTube are improvised, most of the time the people have a well-established script before they start recording. Before you start recording, you might also want to get feedback on your plan. So ask your colleagues or maybe a family member or just somebody who has some time to review your plan. Depending on the type of video you're producing, it can be time consuming. So before putting in maybe hours recording and editing, it's a good idea to make sure that your plan makes sense beforehand. Does the flow of your ideas make sense? Does the video meet the goals that you originally set? And then when you're happy with your plan, you can go ahead and record it. Before sharing, make sure that you review. This is another point of getting feedback as well at this stage. Make sure that your audio is clear. Make sure that your pace is appropriate. And again, if you do add any additional visuals or content, make sure that everything is relevant to the topic. And then when you're happy with the final product, you can share the video with your students. So there are some options in what tools you can use to create a lecture recording or video for your course. It really depends on what your needs or plans are. If you do a basic lecture recording, with or without students present, you can always use Zoom. So Zoom allows you to record live and interactive sessions with your students, but you can also record your lecture ahead of time. Zoom is likely the most straightforward and streamlined way to go about recording a lecture. If you log into the platform through My Courses and record from there, when you're done, that recording is automatically saved within the lecture recording system in your course. So the pros are that it's relatively straightforward. You can use features like screen capturing or the whiteboard to interact with your material. The cons is that it's somewhat limited to recording what's going on in that moment only. So it doesn't really give you any opportunity for editing or adding any additional media like annotations or animations, pictures or other videos. If you're looking to record short videos that just involve presenting PowerPoint slides, you can use the recorder in PowerPoint. It's quite simple. You just record a voiceover to your presentation in presentation mode and then export it as a video file, like an MP4. I've been told by multiple instructors that it's quite user-friendly if all you want to do is record your PowerPoint presentation, but keep in mind it's limited. You can't record yourself. Only your voice, and you're restricted to the PowerPoint features itself. And finally, you might be interested in producing more complex video productions that include different types of media, like images or other videos, and annotations, animations, screen captures, etc. So Camtasia is the most sophisticated software I have of the three options here. It's a very powerful video editing program, and it's available for free to the McGill community. Adam will share a link to the IT software site, which will give you access to Camtasia and other potential other available tools. You could potentially generate entire modules with Camtasia, but I've also met a few instructors that like to use it for just more finessed type tutorial videos. So for example, I had an instructor that wanted to produce a video to explain how to use different formatting styles in Microsoft Word. So she said that she'd been explaining and re-explaining the appropriate use of different formatting styles for years when her students wrote essays. So finally, she had asked me to help her create a short tutorial video that she would post and share with her students when necessary, and she wanted to use Camtasia. So in the end, I actually didn't have to help her with the software. She was able to figure it out on her own. But once she did have the video produced, she said it was a real time saver because when students had questions or when she was seeing mistakes using these formatting styles and papers, she would just share the video with her students rather than having to explain it and re-explain it every time. So just out of curiosity, using the yes or no that's found, the yes or no icons that are found under participants on your Zoom toolbar at the bottom of your screen, I just would like to get an idea or get a sense of how many of you would be interested in learning more about video creating and video editing using a tool like Camtasia. Quite a few of you are saying yes. You can say no, don't worry. Oh, there is one no. So quite a few of you are interested. That's really great to know. It's just interesting to see what people are interested in on campus, especially in the remote environment that's going to be our fall semester. So thank you so much for participating. I am sensitive to the concern that a software like Camtasia can be intimidating. So I don't blame some of you that might have said no, but you can start out small. You can test it out, maybe record a low stakes type video. You may even just want to start with an introductory video of yourself and then, or about your course, just to become a little more familiar with making a video in general. It might actually be something that you enjoy, you never know, and eventually you'll become a video editing expert. If you do want to explore a little bit more about Camtasia, just to get a better sense on how the platform looks and how it works, we will be providing some really helpful resources that are provided by Camtasia itself that include a variety of short tutorial videos that you can watch. I also want you to keep in mind that you don't have to choose one type of video over the other. You can include a variety of videos in your course. So you might choose to record your fixed lectures and then record some additional tutorials or other types of short videos in your content. So regardless of how you produce your videos, the best way to share them with your students is through the lecture recording system in my courses. As I said, if you record with Zoom within your course, in my courses, your recordings will automatically be uploaded to the lecture recording system. As Megan said before, captions are also automatically added to your video as well. If you record elsewhere, like PowerPoint or Camtasia, and produce a video file, you will have to upload your video to the lecture recording system manually. At this moment, I realize that videos here must be viewed within the lecture recording system, but in the very near future, in the next few weeks, there will be an integration with the content which will allow you to host your videos in the content section of my courses. So students won't have to move back and forth between the content tab and the lecture recording tab. So the third section of our presentation is creating opportunities for practice. So there are different strategies in which you can get your students to interact and engage more deeply with your content. I have an example here of an online course at McGill that uses the strategy of adding quick, low-stakes learning activities to the flow of the content. So as you can see in this module, in this particular module, they use videos, so short 5 to 10 minute videos staggered with self-assessment questions. It's not the expectation that your course must look like this, so don't feel the need to go into full production mode and create entire videos for your course, but it just gives you an idea that you can break up your content pieces and have them reinforced by short interactive activities. So just to reiterate that, rather than presenting long pieces of content and then giving your students knowledge checks at the end of a module only, you might want to consider staggering or alternating your content with an activity. When I say content, I mean your course materials. So content doesn't have to be videos, as you saw in the example, but it can be PowerPoint slides, readings, articles, websites, etc. The activities can also look like a few things. So they can be self-assessment questions, as you saw. They can be a quiz question, a survey question, or even a discussion prompt. So short activities like these give students an opportunity to check in with their learning, but it also shifts their focus from listening or reading passively to being a little more active with their learning. You can use these types of activities as knowledge checks before you present an idea, or as a way to perhaps get them thinking about the next content topic.
So to wrap up, I'm just going to sort of do a quick once over of all of the things that we addressed today. So when creating your content, start by determining how you want to organize your content, create the bones of your course. Think about how the structure will impact your students' learning experience, what would be the best and most engaging way to expose them to your content. Make sure your organization is explicit, easy to navigate, and create a rhythm by following a similar structure for each model so students know what to expect. Curate materials before creating them whenever possible. Using existing materials will save you a lot of time, and there is a huge and rich selection of pedagogical materials readily available online. The McGill Library has many resources as well as a full staff of librarians that can help you find what you need. And when you're unable to curate materials that you need, you can create them. So you can use software such as PowerPoint or Camtasia, Zoom to record videos or create readings and activities within My Courses. And finally, think about including low-stakes activities within your course. You've created or curated high-quality content, but it's really important to give your students the time to think about what they've heard, seen, or read. And this preparation will allow you to create a rich and engaging learning experience for your students. So we've talked a lot, we've given you a lot of information here today, and a good next step would be to start exploring My Courses and sort of gain familiarity with the platform. If you're new to My Courses, you will probably find My Courses Essential to be a very helpful tool to get you started. So it's a self-paced tutorial that includes descriptions of the most commonly used tools in My Courses, including best practices and links to step-by-step instructions. So you can navigate through the full course, or you can just refer to it when needed when you're setting up your own course. And finally, I would like to remind you that this webinar is part of a series. You can register to the others on our website. This session will be recorded and published on our website, and as well as a series of links and tools to resources relevant to today's topic. So now we'd like to hear from you. What was your most important takeaway from today's session? Do you have any questions? I think what we'll have you do is put your questions in the chat. It just allows us to answer more of them at a time. So feel free to let us know if you want to hear more about anything that we talked about today.
Megan, I'm just going to mute you because you have some loud hammering going on. I know there's work being done around your apartment. That's okay. So if anybody has any questions, I saw one here. Let me just scroll up, like Catherine, I think it was. Yes, Catherine. What tool was being used for the self-assessment between videos? So My Courses actually has a self-assessment tool. They're essentially, they're kind of quiz questions that you can create that are not, the responses that the students make are not recorded. So it's solely just for students being able to check their own understanding. So you won't be able to go in and see what they've responded, if it's right or wrong. It's really just to give them a sort of knowledge check for their own learning purposes. Biggest takeaway, breaking content into, oh, the chat's moving on me. Breaking content into smaller chunks when teaching online. Also, it's the first time to hear about Camtasia. Yeah, Camtasia is really great. I mean, I kind of taught myself how to use it. In the end, I ended up really enjoying working on video editing. So it might be something that you might enjoy too if you want to check it out with the link that Adam had posted to the IT site where you can get it. Just to answer the question about the textbook, most of the texts I will be having my students read the entire book are available to download from sites. I do not know that these PDFs are legally shareable. Can I have our librarians scan the whole book, or can I share these PDFs anyway? I would highly recommend you contact your liaison librarian about that. I'm not a copyright expert, but I know that the library has a lot of great information, and they'll be able to tell you exactly what the policy is on that. where can I find the My Courses Essentials refresher course? I believe everybody should be registered in that, and it should show up when you log into My Courses. You can search for it, and under the little icon that has a bunch of squares, if you click on that, you should see all the courses you have access to. If you do not have access to it, please contact IT about that, and we'll get you access as soon as possible. Lots of questions coming here. I just need to read through them. Great that you didn't know about OERs. They are quite useful, yes. And the fact that you can use and reuse them and adapt them is really great. Where do you get the nice graphics in your PowerPoints? Actually, I use a lot of smart art. I just adapt the smart art that PowerPoint provides. For the images, if you search, there's an icon where under the Insert tab where you can insert online images, and I just make sure that it's under a Creative Commons license, so I'm allowed to use it. And then they have a ton of nice graphics. Try to keep it consistent within a slide. As you can see, some of the slides I had real life images, some I had icons. So that's just a pointer is to make sure you're consistent, but thank you. Yeah, so the links that we have in the chat and that I talked about in the presentation are going to be shared in the same place that you went to register for the webinar itself. Actually, they should already be there. There should be a list of resources that we've included that you can go check out on the website where you registered for this webinar. Oh yes, PowerPoint 365 design ideas. If you have the updated version of PowerPoint, they also give you some really amazing options for slide designs that you can choose from. Sometimes it'll pop up automatically, but design ideas, if you type that into the search bar on top of your PowerPoint navigation bar, you can see some interesting slide designs that they already have for you. Any other questions or comments? If there are no others, thank you so much for coming. We're going to stick around till at least 10:45. So if you do come up with questions, you can keep asking them. But thank you to everybody else who showed up today. We really appreciate it.